Hi everybody, my name is Jim and this is the Lake Effect Gardener. Well, as you can see, I am back in my shed. I'm wearing clothes that are far more appropriate for this time of year. The snow and the cold have left. Finally. Thank goodness. So this video is something that kind of fell into my lap, and yes, I know that I labeled the video as Wisteria and Chrysanthemum, which sounds like a British crime drama, but this is actually about cuttings. So, a friend made some wisteria cuttings for me. Okay, a lot of them. I think I counted 10. Okay. Now, wisteria is one of those things I think people can be afraid of, and rightfully so, because sometimes wisteria can get a little bit out of hand. Now, not sure what variety of wisteria this is. I need to find that out, okay? And I'll explain why in a little bit. But let's head into the polytunnel, and I'm just gonna show you just quickly what I'm going to do, and then I will show you what's going on with the chrysanthemum that I was talking about. So let's go to the tunnel. So here we are in the tunnel. It's still absolutely muddy as all got out, but never mind. It will dry up soon, I'm sure. And I'm so happy that it's warmer in here now, because I've already noticed, even after a couple of days, that things are really beginning to take off in here. But that's not why we're in here. Okay, so these cuttings. Now, I don't know if you can, let me take out one of these cuttings. Okay. So you can see that it's starting to come into bud, and this is really the ideal time to be doing this, I suppose. I don't think, well, I really guess it doesn't matter, but anyways, so when these cuts were made for me and given to me, the person who did the cuttings also dipped the ends into some of that propagating powder, okay? That root hormone powder, which is great. I have my own. I would have done the same anyway, so that's gonna save me a lot of time, honestly. No, it's not. Not a lot of time. I don't know why I said that. Anyways, so as with any cutting, I've got this container of compost here, and what you want to do when you're doing multiple cuttings inside a container is take your cutting and you're going to slide them down, okay? And I'm putting about 3 leaf nodes worth of cutting into the pot, okay? And like I said, there's a ton of them. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stick these in here. Now, as I had stated earlier, wisteria is not something that everyone is completely fond of, okay? And that's because you really need a structure in order to grow these things. They are obviously, they're vines, and they need a structure to grow up, and something that's strong enough that's going to be able to support them. That's really, really important. These become really, really huge plants, and they need that, and really heavy ones too. They need that support in order to, you know, do well. Okay, how many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm not using that one. Well, I'm just gonna throw some in the middle too. 9, 10, 11, and there's 12. Okay, so I have a dozen cuttings here. Okay. Now, if a lot of these don't take, I'm okay with that. If they all take, well, I will find a place for them. Now, there are two main groups, I believe, of wisteria. There's the Chinese wisteria, okay, and wisteria, the Japanese wisteria, okay, and I've done some research on both of them, and it seems as though the Chinese wisteria tends to be very invasive, okay. When the Chinese wisteria blooms, it creates masses and masses of seeds. Now, I suppose that if you were on top of it and cut the blooms off, okay, you wouldn't really have a problem with that. The Japanese variety is much slower growing, and it doesn't, you can control it. We'll just put it that way. So, I need to find out what the variety is, what type of wisteria this is, because if it is a Japanese wisteria, then I will feel comfortable and safe to plant them around, you know, the foundations of different structures that I have here at the cottage. So if this is Chinese wisteria, on the other hand, I think what I may do is train these as trees, okay? And I'm going to put them, I'll show you where I'm going to put them, but I'm going to put them kind of away from everything. I think they're gorgeous. They are very, very beautiful, but I also don't want to have a headache on my hands. So I'll get these a water in and then see what they do. If they root and they come into bud, that's great. I'll be thrilled, and I'll find a place for them. If they don't, no big deal, okay? Another thing about wisteria that people may not know or may not like about them is the fact that it takes at least 10 years, they say, for them to finally produce blooms. So I'm willing to wait, I guess. All right, so I'm going to put these down. And the second part of this video was about chrysanthemums. And here I have a chrysanthemum from last autumn. I usually buy two, very, very large ones, you can see, beautiful. They are gorgeous. They really, really are. At the end of the season, which happens really early here in Western New York, the end of the season, they die back, and then they go into the compost pile. So I left them in their pots, and as things started to turn weather-wise here, I took them and I put them in the greenhouse. I don't know why I did. I mean, of course I know why I did, because I thought, oh, maybe I can winter them over, okay? So fast forward to today, and I had them sitting, I took them out of the greenhouse, I had them sitting out at the front of my polytunnel. And I took the first one, which was deader than a doornail, and I took it out of the pot, and I, broke it up and put it into the compost pile. And then I was taking this one out, okay? And I'm just gonna show you. I'm gonna cut some of this away here. And I don't know if it was due to the protection or the location where it was in the greenhouse. Oh, it smells like autumn. I don't know how happy I am about that. Okay, but green shoots. Oh my gosh, it wintered over. My biggest complaint with chrysanthemums is that, I mean, I love them, they're fabulous, but especially where I live, when they finally are out in the shops and things like that, it's too late to put them into the ground here. It gets cold so fast that it's nearly impossible to winter them over. I've tried wintering them over indoors and they die. I've put them in the greenhouse before, nothing. This one weathered the storm, which makes me over the moon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the rest of this back, okay, to expose all the beautiful little green shoots. I'm going to keep it in here. I'm going to grow it on for a little bit, and then I'm going to plant this, I'm going to call it the mother plant, somewhere in the garden. This is going to give it time to establish itself, which is the problem here in Western New York when it comes to chrysanthemums, because you know, you can buy them, they look beautiful, you put them in the ground, they're going to die, okay? It gets too wet, it gets too cold, too fast for these. They are hardy to zone 5, okay? So I'm 6A, I think I said, 6A. So I'm going to plant this one on, and then I'm going to take masses and masses of cuttings off of this plant, okay? And then I'm going to root those on and get them into the ground so they have time to establish, so I can have gorgeous fall chrysanthemums. I cannot wait. I'm so excited about this. If you guys have any tips out there, if you live in a colder climate such as where I am, where you know you've been successful in wintering over your chrysanthemums, we call them mums, okay? I know the British don't call them mums because they call their mother's mum. They call them chrysanths, which I think is very charming. If you have any good tips for wintering over chrysanthemums, this was a total fluke. I did not plan on this happening. If you have suggestions, please put some in the comments box below, because I would really, really like to know exactly what your techniques are, because I buy these every single year, and every single year it's almost like I'm throwing money out the window because they look gorgeous all throughout autumn and then they get chucked. So, yay! Thrilled about that. Okay, let's go. I'm going to take you out into the garden and I want to show you where I might plant. If these are Chinese wisteria, I want to show you what I plan on doing with them. So, come on. I don't know if you can still hear me sloshing through the mud. It is still a mud pit. Oh, the garden. Makes me so happy. Okay, so I'm taking you over here. And if you recall from a couple videos ago, this is the area where I've dumped my wheelbarrow. This is where I put all of the mulchings, okay, that I'm going to be using in the garden. We're going to come through here. And this area here is the area in question, okay? So I originally had my bird bath over here. I've moved my bird bath into the garden. If you remember where the obelisk originally was, okay, I had to put a little concrete planter. And then I was thinking to myself, this bird bath is really just kind of off the beaten path, and it's not really doing much. And the birds don't, I mean, they frequent it sometimes. So I moved it. I put it into the garden. So as you're walking into the garden, that's what you see first. I've also converted half of it into a bee watering station. So birds and the bees. But anyways, so this area is just kind of a blank canvas. I've got some currants growing along the fence here. I've got some bridal wreath spirea. I just planted a cutting of a climbing rose to go over the trellis, but otherwise there isn't much going on here. So this area gets a decent amount of sun, not a ton, gets a decent amount of sun. And I was reading about how wisteria can do well in at least 6 hours of daylight and direct sun, and this area does get that. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a wisteria grove right here, okay? If all of those cuttings happen to come, you know, into bud and they root really, really well, depending on the variety, okay, I'm going to kind of create a woodland of wisteria trees here. I think it would look really, really beautiful. And, you know, 10 years from now, when I'm in my 50s and they're finally at the age where they're going to bloom, I mean, it's going to be breathtaking. So I'll let you know, how that's going to be happening. There will definitely be a video on that for sure. So, yeah. All right, let's go back into the shed. as I was sloshing through the mud on my way back to the shed, I was thinking to myself, if those wisteria, you know, happen to take and they plant it in and I create this, oh, wouldn't it sound completely posh if I renamed my cottage the Wisteria Grove Cottage? Oh, anyways. So, those knowledgeable people out there about wisteria, please feel free to weigh in and let me know what is up with those. Now, as soon as I find out whether it's a Chinese or a Japanese wisteria, then I'll be able to kind of move forward with the cuttings once they have taken, if they take. Okay, so that's about it. I plan on doing quite a bit of cuttings this year, so there's going to be some cutting videos coming up. I want to do some hardwood cuttings, I want to do some softwood cuttings, lots of propagation. I have a lot of property here and I would like to see it completely lush. I want less lawn, okay? So I think what we'll do at our next video, our next meeting together, is I will give you an April tour. There isn't much going on, but I can show you what's going on in the greenhouse. I can show you all the different things that I've planted, and one more very special thing that you guys haven't seen yet. So make sure that you tune in to the next one, okay? Which will probably be on Saturday. All right, guys, that's it from me. Nice talking to you as always. Hope you're all getting on in your garden, making things look beautiful and lush. I'll see you all very, very soon. So long.